Hey, Connie.
Hey, Scotty, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm great.
So you had a good interview for us this week. Tell us about your interview.
I did. I'm excited to introduce Taylor. I met her at the racetrack. She is a race car driver for Hyundai Motorsport and a few others. And she is amazing. She's a young woman in her 20s who's a race car driver. I mean, how cool is that? And I met her because we were driving the new Hyundai N or the Hyundai Kona N and Hyundai Elantra N on the track in Toronto a couple of summers ago. And I just had to talk to her. So I'm super excited to have her on the podcast and get to talk about women in motorsport.
Well, I'm excited to hear because 20 years old, in her 20s, very promising career ahead of her, but also for any other woman who wants to build a career in something like this, what does that look like? And we'll get to see.
Exactly. Let's talk to Taylor. Well, it's so nice to see you again.
Yeah.
We met at a Hyundai Motorsport. Well, it wasn't a motorsport event. It was a Hyundai event.
Yeah.
I was driving the new Hyundai Kona N and Hyundai Elantra N on the Canadian Motorsport, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park track in Toronto, outside of Toronto. And you were there because you drive for Hyundai.
Yeah, I remember it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. 2.5 summers ago or so. Or 2 summers ago. So tell me a little bit. I was looking at your sites and your news articles, and you're just everywhere. Like, tell us a little bit. Give us a little bit of what's happening now. Who are you driving for? What are you working on right now? What's next?
Yeah, so right now I am still driving with Brian Herta Autosports in the Elantra in TCR. We unfortunately had to go back to the number 77. It's a little pro and con there because that's my original number, but we did have to get rid of the number 1 since we did not have a great year last year. So we're still doing that, and I think that's going to be my primary focus this year. We haven't really started thinking ahead yet, or deciding if we're going to do Europe again or whatnot. We still have a little bit there. So, but I think right now Hyundai is going to be my primary focus.
Right. So so tell me, I'm so curious how you came. You're so young. You're in your late 20s, right?
Yeah.
How did you become a race car driver?
So I actually used to do show jumping from the time I was probably like 8 or 9 until my sophomore year of college.
Show jumping as in horses?
Yeah. So I did equestrian for a really long time. But I always watched racing with my dad. That was kind of like our little thing. And I did want to do karting, but I kind of had to pick between the two. It was either horses or karting. I couldn't do both. They're very expensive sports. So he was always working and everything, and my mom knows nothing about cars, and I know nothing about cars. So karting really wasn't going to be the route to go. So I went with the horses, and me and my mom did that together almost my entire life. And then my dad growing up in Alabama, he would always go to the SCCA runoffs at Road Atlanta at that time. So when I got a little bit older, he started taking me to Petit Le Mans, and I kind of just fell in love with sports car racing. I grew up watching NASCAR and then IndyCar and then sports car racing and F1, but I've always loved sports car racing, endurance racing the most. I think it's just a bit more dynamic. So we did that, and I have an older sister. She's like 3 years older than me. So when she was 16 years old and had her license and was driving like every 16-year-old does, he bought her a Skip Barber Racing School certificate and just knew she was going to be the race car driver of the family. And she has zero interest in it, so it never got used. So one of the last years that I went to Petit Le Mans, I think it was like 2014, they had a booth there at that time, and I asked them like if the certificate was still good. And they said, yeah, like it was already paid for, good to go. So in 2015, me and my dad did a 3-day racing school together. Racing's not for him. He always wanted to be a race car driver. My mom would never let him, and it's not for him. So I really enjoyed it. And so I went back and did a 2-day racing school with Skip Barber in 2016 and still really enjoyed it. So we kind of decided it would just be like a little hobby for me and him since I did the horses with my mom for so long. This was kind of a me and him thing now that he was retired. So I did 1 year of club racing in Spec Miata in 2018. Just supposed to be a hobby. We had a lot of fun with it. He got to work on the cars. He was retired, bored, had nothing to do. So he learned a lot about that and really enjoyed it. And the guys that built the car and, took care of the things my dad couldn't do, engine base, they wanted to go SRO racing in 2019. So I went with them and drove the Honda Civic Si and TCA. Had a pretty semi-successful season, had a couple podiums, and signed a contract with Honda from there. And so I went TCR with Honda in 2020, and then Hyundai picked me up from there. So it kind of went from hobby to career pretty quick.
That's amazing. That's wild that you seem to just be naturally talented at this.
Some would say. I choose not to, but other people do.
So it obviously requires a lot of work and effort and learning as well, not just natural talent. And I'm curious, so from what I can tell, race car drivers require a lot of physical strength. Do you work out a lot, and what is your overall fitness and health routine?
Yeah, so I try to do more yoga than anything. I've recently been told I'm not allowed to do that. So my workout has kind of changed a little bit because I do have fibromyalgia. So there's certain restrictions I'm not allowed to do with fibromyalgia and hyperextension. So like my cardio has kind of gotten everything has kind of changed a bit, and I have to focus a little bit more on the weightlifting side versus the cardio side. So I'm still trying to figure out what I can and can't do.
Right. So it's because of the health condition, not the racing, that you can't do yoga.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's unfortunate. I'm sure you miss it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed yoga. For me, it was it gave me a lot of balance, flexibility, core strength, and just a lot of mental peace.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And do you work with a trainer for your weightlifting?
Yeah. So I'll be doing a personal trainer once I kind of find one that can work with situations that I have. So I'll be working with a personal trainer, and then chiropractic work, acupuncture, and cryotherapy.
Wow.
All of the things.
All of the things.
Yeah.
But that's important, I imagine, because it requires a lot of endurance, what you do.
Right. Yeah. It requires a lot of endurance and then mental strength. So for that, I personally just kind of like to play games on my phone that kind of require a lot of either strategy or reaction time training. That way I don't get bored doing the game, so I get to do it, but it's still reaction time plus, Call of Duty. That's always fun.
That's so interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that you would
yeah.
have that mental stimulation or mental training, but that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, when you get hot and tired, then your brain gets hot and tired, so you need to make sure that you're still firing on all cylinders so things don't happen on the track.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So, what do you think you would be doing professionally if you weren't racing cars professionally?
That's actually really interesting because I am currently taking interior design courses.
Oh, cool.
So I've kind of gone a couple different routes. I have a degree in business management. I've taken some real estate development courses, and now I'm taking interior design.
Interesting.
So we'll see.
Yeah, you'll see. But do you think, is there something that you're dreaming about doing when you're done racing cars professionally?
I don't really know yet. I mean, I'm still kind of trying to find my little niche. It's kind of, I've been all over the place. I did want to do private equity for a little bit because getting to play with other people's money and make money off of it always sounds like fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then I grew up watching my mom renovate homes, so I've always enjoyed doing that. This is my second home now, and I've done renovations on both. and me and my mom like to DIY it. So we actually just finished tiling my house DIY.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we like to do that, which is kind of why I did the real estate development. But as I went through those courses, I was like, no, I kind of just like the like design and architecture side a little bit more.
Right.
And ever since I was little, I've always liked the entrepreneur and architecture side. So I've always, I mean, when I was a kid, I lived on 5 acres and I wanted to open up a kennel business. I wanted to board dogs on our property. So like I went and drew out like our property and where the kennels would be and how it would work. So I've always liked the like entrepreneur and architect side.
Right.
I'm kind of thinking like maybe the design side of companies and commercial buildings and homes might be my niche. We'll find out.
That's cool. Yeah, you have lots of time.
Yeah.
So have you ever felt, or how do you feel, or being in a male dominated industry, how has that been for you?
Honestly, like I haven't had very many horrible stories. I mean, there was a couple drivers in like Spec Miata who's like, oh, she's a rookie and she's a girl and she's beating me. But I've never had anybody like be rude or talk negative or anything. Like I've always felt like I was very included. So
That's amazing.
kind of the way it's been for me. I've been very fortunate on that. I know it's not the same for everybody, sadly, but I've always kind of been in like a little family areas. So
That's amazing. No, that's
yeah.
fantastic. And what advice would you have for other young females wanting to get into motorsport, whether it be in the driver's seat or even just in the space at all?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, my whole thing that I've kind of lived by that has kind of been how I've been my whole life is I don't mind working harder. So my advice would be don't let it get to you. And if you have to work harder than everybody else, do it. If that's what you want, do everything you can to make it happen.
And do you feel like you've had to work harder than someone else, like a male in your position? Do you feel like you've had to work harder?
Yeah, I feel like there's a little bit more pressure to prove that you're just as fast, and everybody is their own worst critic. And I have a pretty good team behind me. So my manager is usually the one sitting behind me that's reminding me, like, the guys you're against have been doing this for a lot longer. They came from karting. Your times are good. You're good. But I think the biggest thing is like just proving that we can do it. That's the little hump we have to get over.
Yes. Do you have a pre-race routine or a pre-race like good luck sort of routine or thing that you do?
I did. I always would wear the same watch for qualifying and my race, which was a watch that I got for my first race win. And I would always eat my gluten-free mac and cheese before every race. But I kept up those rituals last year and they didn't quite seem to work for me. So I'm working on figuring out what the issue is and kind of changing the routine.
Okay.
I haven't quite decided. I've learned like I have 13 tattoos. I feel like that's an unlucky number, so I think I need to get another one. Maybe that'll change it.
Well, I hear 13 is Taylor Swift's lucky number, so there's got to be some luck there.
It is, but you know, I got it in October of 22, and we got hit that year for the championship, and then 23 wasn't very good, and then we got a tire blown in Daytona, so I don't think it's a lucky number for me.
Okay.
So I'm working on changing maybe the rituals, seeing what sticks, what doesn't.
And do you have an idea of what your 14th tattoo is going to be?
I do not. I have no clue yet.
Oh.
Yeah, I currently have a tattoo on my wrist that it means horse in Hebrew, but I want to get that one covered. One of my dogs recently passed last July, and I had her for 16 years, so since I was like 12.
Oh, wow.
So I want to get like a little paw print over that, made out of roses. So
that sounds lovely.
That still makes it 13, so I still have to get another one on top of that. I just
yes.
don't know what it is yet.
Okay. Well, Taylor, it's been so much fun chatting with you, and I'm excited to see what is coming next. And thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Hopefully we'll see you again at another fun driving event.
Yeah, hopefully. You got to make it out to like one of the grid life events we do. They're so much fun.
Yes, definitely. I will try.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Have an awesome day.
Thanks, you too.
So I think the thing that strikes me the most is when I see Taylor, I think of that phrase, if you can see her, you can be her, which really is for so many people, the entree into a world, a career, an existence, a passion. Did you get that?
Absolutely. And I love the representation. I love seeing a 20-something-year-old woman in motorsport doing something that's not typically done by women. And I think it's so powerful for that representation. I mean, I have 3 teenage daughters. So for them to see women in motorsport means to me that they can see themselves doing those things if they want to do those things. And what Alana said in her interview last episode really struck home for me, that when she was 13, had she seen a woman racing at NASCAR, she may herself have become a race driver. So I love the representation. I loved seeing and meeting Taylor that day on the track with Hyundai. And in fact, I drove with another female race driver that day in the car. And I love it. It's so inspiring to me to see that. I think it's powerful.
Yeah, I think it is too. I think it is too. And if we're going, that's that's such an important part about why we do what we do and this podcast. And one of the reasons that this is on video. And by the way, if you're listening to this podcast and you want to know what people look like, you could go to YouTube, and I believe our video is live on Spotify as well. So you could see us. Like we, put on a ring light and some lipstick, and we are here to talk to you, in on video as well as on the audio portion of the podcast. And that is part of that idea. If you can see her, you can be her. And that's one of the main ways that women will be attracted to this industry and be able to find their passion in automotive, is by seeing other women do this. So thank you for the interview with Taylor. Taylor, thank you for joining us on our podcast. This is What Drives Her, the podcast that talks to women and some men who are changing the automotive industry from the inside. Your hosts are myself, Scotty Reese, and Connie Peters. Our executive producer, Jordan Amman, edited by Steph Howard, music by Envato Elements. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere that you get your podcasts. And please join us again next time.